gently streaming, and the rockets red glare, the bombs in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Citizens and our neighbors, and we should do it with conversation. Sit down and just say, hey, let's have a cup of coffee, let me tell you why. And it also is good for us to revisit the rights that we have as citizens. Our Constitution was drawn up, I don't know if any of you remember, and we drew up our Constitution to figure out how our government was going to work. And then we had amendments added to that Constitution about 3 years later. And in the Second Amendment, there was debate about, well, how do you check the government? By the way, all of us know that the Second Amendment is there to check the government. You know that, right? Absolutely wonderful things. It's great for hunting. We have it's really good to target practice and shoot. And it's a wonderful sport. That's all right. But we're not fighting for our right to be sportsmen. We're not fighting for our right to be target shooters. We're not even fighting for our right, in a sense, just to fight for a right. This is what our founding fathers believed was going to be the best way to suppress tyranny, or to check tyranny.
That's right.
I don't see this slippery slope as something, even right now, I think a lot of us have a lot of, if you will, legislative targets of people who have plans to suppress and all that. There are many arguments that can be made for possible conspiracies that are going on. But let's put all that aside just for a moment. What we have to always be guarding against is a system that can be taken by somebody who plans to be a tyrant and have the tools to execute tyranny. That's what we're protecting against. So, if the legislators today in California and in our nation are looking to protect the Constitution and keep our country safe from tyrants, they will listen to our message today.
Yeah, that's right.
It is not progressive thinking to meddle with the Second Amendment. It is not progressive thinking. It is regressive thinking. Here are a few things upside down. How many of you use Palm Pilots and need glasses all at the same time? It's a very difficult thing to do. I should have paper. Paper is good. The question of who the militia is was answered back in the late 1700s, or 1788. The question was asked, well, who is the militia? George Mason answered, I asked, sir, what is the militia? It is the whole people. To disarm the people is the best and most effective way to enslave them.
Yeah.
As far as the intellectual debate on who the militia is, the people are the militia. And that is not an arguable point anymore. We do not, the Founding Fathers understood clearly that when they said militia in the Second Amendment, they were talking about the citizens.
We the people.
Now, and we the people. And beyond that, they also debated a lot about, well, if we're a country, we need a standing army in times of war. But they also understood that a standing army alone couldn't be the only group among us that has weapons. And that's why, and I know all of you, thank you for your agreement, but I'm saying this for people who don't understand. And we have to explain this to the rest of our compatriots. We have to explain to them, hey, a militia, us as citizens being armed, is a very good thing for our country. A very good thing for our country. And do we need a military? How many of us are for our military? How many of you think our military is going to turn around and come and get attack us tomorrow? None of us. We're not. We're not sitting here saying that our military will do it, but a tyrant can use the military and might try to use the military.
You mean Obama?
What is the check force? No. What checks our military forces? And what causes our military forces to know, just like was said by the previous speaker, law enforcement loves people who own guns legally. We are partners. We are not against the military, and we are not necessarily even against governance. We want legal, constitutional governance. We have a state senator here with us, and who's going to be addressing us later. We commend you, Senator. We're glad that you're among us, and all the elected representatives. We should give them a hand for the work that they do. So we don't stand against order. We don't stand against constitutional government, but we stand against anything that attacks the Constitution.
Right.
Noah Webster, you guys know the guy who made Webster's dictionary? He was asked to figure out the question about guns, and he said, before a standing army can rule, as far as tyranny is concerned, if a tyrant was going to actually take an army and try and rule over a people, and he's talking about this generally speaking. They looked at history, they looked at Europe, and this still applies today. The people must be disarmed. Must be disarmed in order for a standing army to rule. As they are in almost every kingdom in Europe. The supreme power in America cannot enforce unjust laws by the sword, because the whole body of the people are armed and constitute a force superior to any band of regular troops that can be, or any pretense, raised in the United States, or for that matter come against the United States. Just for fun, can you imagine any country trying to invade the South? Just saying, not going to work. Why won't it work? They won't have to call the military in. Good old boys are going to, hey, we're going shooting today, you know. And good old girls too. And a military force at the command of Congress can execute no laws but such as the people perceive to be just and constitutional. That the people perceive to be constitutional. For they will possess the power and jealously will instantly inspire the inclination to resist the execution of a law which appears to them unjust and oppressive. And that's what we're here to do today. We are here to say, no, please, you need to reconsider. The Second Amendment will not be infringed upon. One more thing I want to do. There was a lady in our meeting today who's from England, and I asked if I could interview her, and she said, no, darling, I'll fall apart. So she said she'd fall apart if she spoke. But I'm going to just mention the story she told me. Her name's Elizabeth. She's in our crowd. I'm not going to recognize her because she'll fall apart. And but she is here. And Elizabeth just told me just about a half hour ago. She's from Great Britain. She said that Dunblane school shooting in 1996 happened in England, which was the trigger for the British government to confiscate all of the weapons in the British Commonwealth, or in the United Kingdom. And she remembers her brother actually turned in he was a hunter, he turned in his hunting rifle. It is illegal to own, for the citizens to own weapons in England, and what triggered it was a school shooting. The return, that triggered the returns, and law-abiding citizens were requested to turn in their weapons. And you know what law-abiding citizens did? They turned them in. Because they abide by the law. Since then, violent crime in England has skyrocketed. Murder by gun has gone down, but that's because there are fewer guns circulating. But it's really interesting, criminals still have guns in England. Kind of an interesting fact. No, it's amazing. Yeah. The criminals didn't turn their weapons in, and now she told me this, that there are home invasions happening in England all the time, where groups of men will come into a house, beat people up, or threaten them with a weapon, and just scavenger through the house and take whatever they want. And then they exit. The police in England are just now coming around to actually thinking about weaponizing themselves. Right now they're looking at having more tasers and pepper spray. And it's not going to work. We don't need to devolve in order to re-evolve to the place that our founding fathers brought us. We need to understand the Second Amendment is very important. And I will close with this. As a pastor, I want to tell you this. No weapon commits a crime.
Yep.
It's time for a Bible lesson. Everybody ready for a Bible lesson? Yeah. Book of James says that evil begins from the desires we have in our heart.
Yes.
That temptation is formed by the desires of our heart. All of the battle that is going on in our society today is the battle of the heart. Once the heart decides to do good or evil, it will take advantage of all of the tools available to it to perpetrate that good or that evil. You can take guns away from people and evil will still exist. And in our society, there is not, if we're going to, and again, I'm not actually trying to educate you, but this is just a few pointers for you to talk to your friends. Are crimes perpetrated by knives? Of course. Are crimes perpetrated by bare hands? So are we going to blame our hands for choking somebody to death? Or the... Wait a minute, no, that's the wrong Bible lesson.
Walk it out.
So this is it, and I want to tell you this: it is not about vengeance, and it is not about anything else, but it is the human heart that is the problem. So I want to call you, if you want an action item from a pastor, we need to return to prayer. Don't not pray for your, if you want to protect your first line of defense for your household is prayer. You need to ask the Lord to pray. You need to pray and ask the Lord for favor and protection for your children. And that's what I'm praying for constantly. We need to pray protection of our children. We also then need to pray that God will be favorable and forgive our country for the sins that we've perpetrated against one another and against Him.
Amen.
And we need to return back to a heart that loves. Today, if we will embrace love again, and we need to love our enemies, we need to pray for those who use us, and we need to pray for our enemies. We need to pray because their eyes need to be open too. And let's bring love back to this equation. A loving heart, even if it has a gun, will do no wrong. It will do no evil. Thank you very much.
Yeah.